This is the conversation we talked about last night. It's from News Hub over the weekend, where they were talking about minority governments, etc., 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 and what it means to vote. The first clip is talking literally about minority governments. Let's have a look.
Lots of jostling for position in terms of policy positions. Lots of jostling for position in terms of policy positions. How likely is it, do you think, we're going to have a minority government given previous trends?
Yeah, thank you for covering that, because that's been something that I've been trying to add to the debate. Like honestly, like under MMP, to some extent, governments have just been making it up as they go along and figuring out what will work. So, coalition is only one possibility, but we've also seen over our kind of history of MMP, different kind of innovative arrangements, I guess, like under the John Key years that enhanced confidence and supply. We are kind of making it up as we go, and like ruling in, ruling out, is all fine and good until it's either go with them in some kind of weird, funky, new, innovative arrangement, or go back to the polls. Yeah. And I think most people, if you look at kind of international examples, are going to not want to go back to the polls. You don't want to be the party who caused another election.
Because they create voter backlash, right?
It would be devastating, and it would be devastating for this country as well. Like the level of trust in politicians and voting and that, it would, people wouldn't want to waste another Saturday.
After our chat last night, I've been thinking as well, Chewy, about this idea of a minority government. Like if a real minority government, if two of the parties only had 58 seats and everything they pass, they'd have to negotiate with someone else. I don't know whether that would cause the country to fall over or if it would be quite an interesting experiment. What do you think?
Yeah, I was thinking about that a little bit. I mean, I think it would slow things down, and it just comes down to what party has the most pragmatic politicians.
Yeah.
Rather than the ideologues that are just like, I don't care, let the country burn. Nothing happens without my say-so. You see a bit of that in America. And it's there's a few ideologues around.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also want to make the point that every time I see Jordan Williams, I think it's like if a Muppet wished to be a real person.
Well, you can't see the bottom half of him. Maybe someone's got his hand up his ass to make him talk. Maybe that's actually true.
Well, that'd be big tobacco, wouldn't it?
It's so funny. I didn't play it, but at one stage in this conversation, they start talking about vaping and this and vaping. And is it Simon Shepherd, the interviewer, has to go, now Jordan, now Jordan. And Jordan has to do a disclaimer that they have tobacco behind them before he talks about vaping. It's fabulous. Right, let's move into this part of the conversation. They're talking about how New Zealand are first looking in the polls. And coming up shortly, unless I swallow my tongue and die, we're going to talk about polling and what's been happening in New Zealand polling for the last 4 cycles as well.
Yeah, they're making a comeback in the polls. Yeah. And I think one of the things to note, and one of the things I've been thinking about, is that these are the optimal conditions for populism. Like if you look at the international examples, some of the literature we've written in the election study, is that, there's this kind of inequality, but people concerned about inequality. There was a Herald poll that showed that, and then there's a lot of people saying New Zealand's on the wrong track. And that's just creating those perfect conditions for populism to thrive, and I think Winston Peters is quite happy to take up that mantle.
Yes, he is. And one of those polls was the taxpayer courier poll, but also there was another poll as well regarding ruling Winston in or out.
I do think it's interesting that her name is Laura Graves. She's very smart, Victoria University, politics, and News Hub has chosen to use a Jordan Williams quote as the headline for it. She is by far and away superior and gives out much better information, but Jordan Williams says something headliney, and so he gets the headline. It's your typical media sort of just looking for almost the clickbait.
It's a very mismatched combo.
Yeah. Yeah, an academic looking at the ideas and a lobbyist wanting to push through his views and opinions of his supporters.
Yeah, exactly.
Out at the moment. Does that create a problem in terms of coalition negotiations in the future?
I think Christopher Luxon has a very difficult decision to make. And we've seen on ruling out the Māori Party, he was probably a little bit late. He needs to either do this is what made John Key so powerful. He was comfortable in his own skin. Yeah. He was willing and able to take risks. That last month's Taxpayer Union Courier poll had a hung parliament. This month, yep, New Zealand First is there. Yes, it would be an act national government, but you need just 0.1
That's right.
For ACT to
0.1%.
slip
Yeah.
or for New Zealand First to go up. 0.1. And
So tight.
And on,
So that's assuming that the polls are correct. Are the polls correct? We'll get to that shortly.
Thursday's poll,
Yeah.
Winston Peters would have held the balance of power.
Okay.
Mr Luxon would need both Seymour and confidence votes from Winston Peters.
Right. Does data tell us what National should do in that situation, or is it just a political decision?
Yeah, when we do look back to the election study, voters do prefer that they know the party they're voting for, who they would and wouldn't work with. Like that seems to be something that's
Oh,
quite
right.
clear over
Okay.
election days. People want to know when they're voting for National or Labour who's coming along with them, and for the minor parties who they'll work with.
Yeah,
if you look back to
absolutely.
2017, actually, the majority of Winston Peters voters, New Zealand First voters, wanted them to go with National, and that's one of the arguments that people have put forth.
Well, he's
that
ruled-
why
he-
they lost.
That's Zach's line.
So that's where I got that. I said that last night, and I think some people in the chat wanted to disagree with us. Finally, let's just let Laura wrap this up, because this is the bit where she talks about when people decide to vote.
Yeah. So, Lara, just to wrap up, remind us again how much of the electorate makes it up on the day.
It's literally like a few percent. It's those few weeks. It's really this time period from about now when people view the campaign as starting, and in that last week, it's normally not a lot of people. But I mean, it could be a weird election. It could be one.
You know the data, but Peter Dunn, with that worm, 3 days out from the election, went from a one-man band to bringing, eight
Yeah, that's right.
no
It
hopers into
does
Parliament.
depend on the election as well, so
Okay.
it varies
Okay.
a lot over different elections, and we still have so much road to run, right?
And we do. And
There you go. That's the end of the conversation. So, so from now on in is when, like, I guess we're talking about that 30% undecided. From now through is when they make their minds up. You know, someone once
That's
said
insane
if
to
the
me.
left, if the left
I-
vote, the left wins. Someone says that. I don't know who said that, but it's a good thing to say. And this is the detail. So, Chewy, first of all on that, and then we'll have a look at some of the data that I've spent far too long mulling over because I'm a nerd and I like numbers.
I just can't understand. Like, I don't think I've ever understood the mindset of someone who decides who they're voting for over a series of weeks, rather than sort of gauging the last couple of years.
But but they might be kind of going, like, I don't know who I'm voting for exactly yet. Like, but I know where I'm voting in the political sphere. Maybe
Yeah.
people like me would say I don't know.
Yeah,
Versus
I mean,
just-
I mean,
like, I don't think there's many people going, shall I vote ACT or shall I vote Green? No, I haven't really decided yet. But they might be going,
Yeah.
shall I vote ACT, New Zealand First, or National? That'll be undecided as well.
nah, if I could vote now, lock it in. You know, I'm generally someone that votes on the first day of early polling, so get it done.